Human intelligence is relational. It's hard won over the past 8 million years of relational intelligence with the complexity of nature. That is powerful. It's more powerful than the most powerful AI. And it's also in every one of us. You may not know this, you may not believe me, but it's in there. We just need to activate it, remember it, and take it seriously. This is how we empower ourselves to keep AI as a tool that serves us versus the opposite. I was able to spend time in a kind of relationship with nature that is vanishing and rare. My whole life has been listening to nature and it speaking to me in the way that nature speaks. But we do have moments of clarity when the cultural noise is, attenuated to the point where we can have access to the sacred and the divine that's all around us all the time. Every day I wake up with a sense of purpose and I'm surrounded by beauty. I feel confirmed and affirmed and like this is what I'm here to do. And I see a beautiful future in this. Otherwise, I don't see any future at all. And that's why I say the future is beautiful or there isn't one. When you're in right relationship, self-care is world care.
Welcome to Compassiviste Dialogues. I'm your host, Ali Horiat. My goal in this program is to educate our audience about various global issues and how we can help. My guest today is Dr. Rich Blundell. We're going to learn from this avid surfer about the intersection of nature and science, an equilibrium called Oika. Rich is a neurodivergent scientist who has spent a lifetime exploring the continuities of humans and nature across the scales of cosmic evolution. He specializes in communicating fascinating insights and wisdoms discovered through field research as an ecologist. He has stories to tell from a wide range of scientific, philosophical, and spiritual disciplines. He's also the founder of a cultural movement called Oika, which blends ecological, psychological, technological, and spiritual dimensions to create a prosperous future for everybody on the planet. Hello, Rich, and welcome to Compassiviste Dialogues.
Hi, Ali. You did your research. Thank you.
Yes. And not only that, I've been doing my research for a while. You were someone on my radar. I haven't just heard about you.
Okay, great.
Yeah. I want to start with something a little personal before we get into the rest of it, because I know your backstory of, skipping school, being on the beach, and then, to go from that and then to end up like a lot of people who choose that life, you become a fisherman or you end up in those ways. And all of a sudden, that ends and you are a PhD and a scientist, and then nowhere am I able to find the bridge that okay, this is what happened, that's what happened. So going back to your early experiences, I know the tuna story, that was the catalyst moment for you, all the way to the building of Oika. Can you give us a quick rundown so everybody understands who I'm speaking with?
I don't know if I can. I can try.
Okay.
Can try, man, but I don't know. I mean, all I know is that I have a deep and abiding relationship to nature, and somehow, through sheer serendipity, luck, good fortune, neglect of some kind, I was able to spend time in a kind of relationship with nature that is vanishing and rare and lucky, and it is manifest. It's manifest today, and the bridge that you're looking for, I think the bridge is the life. It's the lifetime. I don't think there is a specific. It's easy to call that moment with the tuna, and if your viewers need the backstory, they could probably find that video about this day when I caught this tuna, and it somehow communicated this thing to me to change my life. But it really wasn't that moment. I mean, that's a convenient kind of narrative device, But in fact, my whole life has been listening to nature and it speaking to me in the way that nature speaks, not always in, not in English, certainly, but the way that nature speaks to us through light, through sounds, through the way that wind blows, the smells of things, even the pain that when you scrape yourself or when you fall or when just
the friction
and the injuries that it causes and the way that it gets into us when we cut ourselves or when, like I say, the grit of the mud when the way you ingest it, the way it gets into us through the things we eat and the experiences that we have. So I don't think there is a single bridge other than to say, and this is the kind of thing I learned was that, and one of the big epiphanies was that I think it takes a lifetime to figure this out. That, in fact, I think that's what life is for. That's what life is. Life is the human opportunity to figure out that what it means to be an Earthling. That's what a life is for. It's a good thing. That's what it's the gift that of the opportunity to come to terms with what it means to be an organism on a planet, orbiting a star in this, and all of that means. That's what. So I don't think there's really a bridge. Sorry, every time someone asks me to talk about it, it just expands.
Okay.
I can't help it because it's all there. That's what I studied was the cosmos. And whenever I try to talk about one thing, it leads to another thing. And so I end up talking about the whole thing. And to try and talk about it in a way that's, that is, it's this process called the infinite in the intimate. And it's hard to find where that boundary is sometimes. It's always hard to find. So I'm going to try when people ask. But so your question was, where's the bridge between what? Being a scientist and Oika?
Yeah, because the thing is, the reason why I asked this is because I kind of related to my own life, and I was, I did a lot of schooling, started a fund, became very wealthy, and one day I just stopped.
What's that like, man? What is that like?
I walked out. I literally walked out because I couldn't. And then my storytelling became the last moment before I left, right? So here I was in Toronto. I was managing a fund. It was over, $3 billion. And after, an event with a homeless person, I literally got in my car, got on a plane, never went back, and then I gave away all my money. So, and started from scratch. I was homeless for a while and kind of built up from there. I look at you, and not just you, a lot of people who speak and resonate on a completely different level. And it's not the language, it's just the way you understand things that is not just a scientist talking, it's not just a surfer talking, it's this blend of the universe kind of has spoken to you. You've had that moment where you've spoken to whatever you want to call it. You want to call it God, nature, Mother Nature, whatever that force is. I feel like you connected there for a moment, right? So when I speak with people like yourself, I'm so fascinated because I think, God, there must be a way that we consciously understand this connection more than it subconsciously or, higher than or super consciously kind of guides us to become who we are. And you went from a fisherman, looking at the tuna's eye. I mean, it could have been nothing. You've killed, hundreds of fish. I mean, it could have been nothing, right? And that can't
only
be
one tuna. Only one tuna.
One tuna. But that can't also be the moment that you said, no, that's it. I'm gonna be Rich Blundell today. It had to kind of, the universe had to massage you into this all the way through that experience and kind of like a volcano have that eruption moment. And then after the lava flows and the world changes and the surfaces change and everything happens. That's what happened to me. So I used to tell the story of the catalyst event with the homeless person in a restaurant. Then I started moving away from that story because I was like, no, that's kind of fake. It's fake to say that one incident was the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing, right? It's kind of like a cop-out. And it kind of feeds into my ego as well.
it's convenient to tell
Yeah,
people
and it
because,
feeds into my ego because there's a story to tell,
right.
and you're kind of like guided by storytellers to always have a story
But
to
it helps
tell
people
that's
understand
captivating.
too, because I think people can identify with a transformative moment.
Mm,
But
hmm
actually, no, the universe is speaking to us from day one, or even before. I mean, I think it's, and so I just think, but we do have moments of clarity
hmm
when the cultural noise is, attenuated to the point where we can have access to the sacred and the divine that's all around us all the time. And but you can get better at it. You can get better at living in the sacred, living in the beauty. And then it's just, once you commit to doing that, once you, what I call it is taking it seriously. Once you take that
mm,
seriously, that the world is genuinely beautiful and genuinely seeking our participation in it. And I mean, I'm not kidding, like I'm a scientist too. This is the other thing. Like I went deep into the sciences, I committed to to learning the reductionist methodology of science and taking it apart to understand it. That's another, and got what feels like to the bottom of it, to say, to once you sort of like take it apart to understand it, and you realize that, wait a minute, there's magic down there, like you can't understand it fully ever
mm,
until you realize that it's all one unified thing, that the ontology is continuous and you are inextricable from it.
hmm
At that point you realize, wow, this really is a divine reality, and you're inextricable from, you are it. And so then it's a question of how do you live in that reality and function. How do you function in the constraints of the modern world, which then becomes the challenge.
Yeah, and you know what? The reason I say I think the universe kind of builds you to be who you are meant to be for the globe. Now, whether you choose to be that person or you miss out on that, uh,
Glow or the globe?
the globe,
Globe. The
the
world.
globe, like, yeah, the world. You're supposed. I could have been somebody completely different. I could have stayed at my job and been on a completely different path than I am today. And today here I am. So I feel like maybe I was late, to the event, but I joined at some point. So
Sure.
I feel blessed that I made it at the end, right? And some people don't. But I think, for example, in my life, I remember I was doing my master's in philosophy,
Mm-hmm.
and for a lack of, because I was late to picking, a professor for my research paper and my defensing and all that. I ended up with a professor who was doing something that I wasn't really interested in. So I had to research and write about Spinoza. I had no
Oh
clue who this
wow.
guy
Wow.
is, right? No
Yeah.
clue whatsoever. I was doing a completely different type of philosophy. I was doing political philosophy. And I end up with Spinoza. Now I have to do a whole research paper on Spinoza, 80 pages on Spinoza. What do you know? I start reading, and what you were saying, the wholeness, the oneness, all these things are coming from this genius at 300, 400 years ago. So you're kind of thinking like, what happened to you? I mean, at what point did you wake up 400 years ago and have this knowledge that is so valid today?
It's
And I can,
universal.
you see,
It's
it's got to
timeless.
be something. Yeah, it's got to be
Oh
something
yeah.
from somewhere beyond our capacity
Well,
to.
it's natural. It's natural. And
Yes,
what
it's
I figured
natural.
is that when you, and this is my path eventually, was to study the story of the universe, through as science reveals it. So I got into geology and then cosmic evolution, and but also keeping, an eye on human evolution and how human history is on a continuum with natural history, and seeing how, if you look at the way that from the Big Bang, which is as far back as we can decipher,
Mhm.
in time, if you take that, not to say that I'm committed to linear time or anything like that, because I see the holes in that as well.
Right.
I see the conundrums and the paradoxes. So, but just holding for the time being the sort of conventional view of science, which is that there's this Big Bang, and if you look at the evidence, it shows how it has evolved through a tiny, compact, rapidly
Mm-hmm.
expanding, high energy, high heat, um, non-uniform cosmos that's expanding, and you see how stars evolve and how galaxies emerge and how patterns emerge and how those patterns create more complexity, and eventually you get planetary systems, and then suddenly there's this our planetary system with a star in the middle. We actually know how this happened. Like there's
Mm-hmm.
really good science, real coherent science that. And then on this planet, if you give it enough time, in our case, about a billion years, and you give it the chemistry and the water and the nutrients and the different molecular interactions, you get this thing that's sort of like life. And then you let that thing that's sort of like life do what it does. It eventually looks more like life, and suddenly you get this thing that's kind of like cellular life. And then that cellular life has relationships over time, and those relationships get more and more complex. And you get multicellular life, and then this thing happens where eventually you get to us. Let's just skip
Mm-hmm.
ahead. But this gorgeous story of complexity and relationship and disaster, you know,
Mm-hmm.
mass asteroid impacts and volcanic eruptions and catastrophes, but also beautiful new emergent relational dynamics. And but you get us, and then you get this primate on the plains of Africa, and something happens where a certain section of a population goes and becomes us. It has certain relationships that become
Mm-hmm.
us, and then civilization happens, you and you can get to us. You can
Mm-hmm.
see the story from the Big Bang to us. I don't know why I'm telling the story other than to say we were talking about Spinoza and the unity of it all.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that unity that Spinoza was seeing and feeling and trying to articulate is consistent with what the whole scientific endeavor has revealed about the universe. He was onto something, and it's a spiritual experience. Like it's to understand that and to just have access to it, it's like it's overwhelmingly beautiful, and that you're a part of it is like
Mm-hmm.
no wonder there have been no wonder there's a thing called religion. No wonder there are
Mm-hmm.
spiritual experiences. No wonder that human populations throughout the globe, throughout the eons of time, have had this universal experience of feeling connected to something big, because we are, like
Yes.
however whatever label you put on it, there's no division between the spiritual experience and the
Mm-hmm.
scientific evidence. They're all saying the same thing, and
Mm-hmm.
I just think we're in a moment where it's time to actually heal that rift, because there's wisdom in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
There's wisdom
Mm-hmm.
in that task, in that. And we need that wisdom desperately right now,
Right.
today. We don't find that wisdom, we probably are going to create,
Mm-hmm.
suffering.
Yeah. And I think the problem in reaching that wisdom that clears the why for people as opposed to the how that science has already proven in so many ways is the short-term capitalism that we live in, because religions, organized religions, I mean, at the end of the day, it's a business, right? I mean, it's a whole industry. Then you have science, and there's dogmas in science as well, and there's a lot of money going through science to uphold certain dogmatic views as well. So for everybody to kind of let go and walk away from it all and build the new and come to this cohesive space, I don't know if we're there yet.
But you did it.
And you did it, but how many?
Well, but you walked away from the capitalist grind,
Yes.
and that's what
Yes.
we need people to do. We don't need people to do what I did. We need people to do what you did. And how do we, like? What is the kernel? What is the deep, like? What is the what? Because we need people to do what you did.
Right,
Not
but
to,
it's very easy. It's just purpose. It's only purpose.
what do you mean?
I'll tell you what I mean. When I started out in the money world, I had ambitions, and these ambitions had very quick diminishing returns. So, when you first make $5,000 a month and then you make $20,000 a month, your life changes a lot. Okay. You can afford so much more. So you get sucked into that capitalism. Then when you're making $1 million a month, it's a world of a difference. But then above that threshold, you're not buying anything new, you're not getting anything new, you're not dating a hotter person, nothing is happening that's substantially different. So what ends up happening is you get bored. And then you realize there's no purpose in actually making more
Okay.
money unless you're blind. And so I wasn't blind because I had this passion in me to do more with my life than just, be remembered as having that office there for another 5 years after I die. And then that's it. That's the end of me. I wanted to contribute to the world in some way. I wanted to help, see the beauty that we can be in instead of continuously driving to the suffering that we're going to.
But we also said this is universal, so that
Yes,
I think that it's in everybody, or
it
maybe
isn't
not
everybody.
everybody, but I think it's in enough people that we could awaken it
Hmm.
in enough people, right? That, and so I guess I'm really interested in your experience. Like, what does it take to get people in your situation, not to necessarily give it all up and become homeless, and because that requires a certain kind of, that's a risk there, and I don't think many people are going to be willing to take, and I don't even think it's necessary to take that kind of risk.
No, it's not. It's only necessary if it, and I'll tell you why I took that risk. I took that risk because I realized when I first walked away, I actually shut the fund, and walked away, and I had my money. I had all my money. And I was going to start this foundation and kind of make changes in the world. And I quickly realized because of my money, I'm getting a lot of yes men people around me, and I'm getting a lot of like, I'm rich so I can call shots the way I want and all those things. And I quickly realized the money was an addiction for me. It was the power shot for me. And so making this transition with this amount of money in my hands was actually counterproductive to the universal purpose, because there was this universal purpose speaking to me on this side. And on the other side was still this, let's make my book the New York Times bestseller because I want to go and speak on this podium. No, this has to die. Okay. So
Really,
the,
because that's a lot to ask. I mean, I think we need to take baby steps. There's this thing called zone of proximal development. Like,
right.
you can't ask somebody to do that. I mean, we have to.
No, you can't. You
But
can't.
but I think but people, human beings value, a sense of belonging, a sense of
Hmm.
purpose, a sense of love, a sense of accomplishment, a sense of respect. These are all valid things that
Hmm.
I don't think we should ask or expect or want people to jettison. And we should, like, and so you don't have to jettison your money.
No.
Money's not
No, no,
the
no,
enemy.
not at all.
Money's not the problem. Money's actually the tool. Money is
Hmm.
the means to do,
Right.
and we should honor, and you can keep your integrity. You just need to fall in love with the world to as
Hmm.
much as you love the money. You know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
or love the world more than the money,
Right.
and then use the money to love the world, like you're doing. And so
Right.
that's not that much of an ask,
No, it's
and
not.
get the accolades for that. Be valued for doing that, instead of, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. It's to not be like that. I don't even. It doesn't compute to me. I don't
Right.
understand what it means to not be
Right.
that way. So we should be able to do that. Like, I don't understand why we can't find enough, you know, powerful, wealthy people who cherish and feel gratitude for what they have, to want to perpetuate the human endeavor.
Right. But you say something interesting. You say that in our current state, we don't understand ourselves as Earthlings yet. So, you come up with this profound aspect that I read on your website. You say specific, and I quote you, so we medicate with hyper consumption. And that sat with me really, like, I was like, wow, I love this, because we've decoupled from nature in a sense, and our civilization has become maladaptive, which is what we're seeing today. I mean, we're maladaptive, and the existential crisis essentially stems from that maladaptation, because you're not, kind of in a way, I don't know, any other species goes extinct when they become maladaptive. And so you stress that ecological restoration begins with healing from this rift, right? With bringing people back to the Earthling state. Now, your Earthling theory, to top this off, is a reinterpretation of, I guess, human evolution through what you call ecological neurophenomenology. Now, You're going to unpack that because it's a lot.
Very, thank you, Al. I gotta have to commend you, man. You're doing good. Thank you.
Yeah, so I do want you to unpack that for people because not a lot of people are going to understand what that sentence was. But the bottom line is, can you connect all of this and your Earthling theory to explain why, like you said, we are in hyperconsumption instead of being on this side in the universal, right? Because that's exactly what we need to do. We need to transition people over to Earthlings, to an understanding of that Earthling that you talk about. How are we going to do that?
Okay, well, first of all, this thing that we're talking about, it's deep. It's deep in our sort of cultural programming right now, that we are separate from the nature, the earth, that we, and this is sort of just a kind of accident, a temporary accident of the way we perceive the world. Like the fact that, sort of, like if I were to say, where are you? You kind of locate yourself somewhere behind your eyebrows. That's kind of like, it's like, that's why we don't talk to other people's feet. We talk to other people's faces because that's where it's located, here somewhere. That's where it feels like we are. But if you look at all the neuroscience, the cutting edge of neuroscience right now, in fact, the neuroscience that's actually driving the most powerful AIs right now, it's based on this idea of an active neuroscience, which is that consciousness itself is enacted between an organism in relationship to the world. In other words, that consciousness isn't grounded in the brain. It's not. It's actually a relational dynamic between, it's a relational dynamic. It's not central to but it seems, because of perceptual dynamics, that it's in us. And so, but it's kind of a fiction. It's the consciousness is actually, in a way, out there. It's not in here. Because of that, it sets up this dualism, this fiction of dualism. If we can begin to deconstruct that fiction is so firmly entrenched right now. That's what's driving all this economic activity right now. So what Earthling theory does, this is my theory, because what I realized, okay, so I've been lucky enough to travel. I spent a lot of time in East Africa doing geologic, ecological studies, studied a lot of wild. But what I realized was that as I traveled, and then I traveled lots of other places around the world, as an ecologist studying the ecosystems, the bottom line is this. What I realized after, decades of traveling and experiencing and studying ecosystems around the world was that my journey through all of these ecosystems, these habitats, what it does is it mirrors, on a lifetime scale, the entire diaspora of humanity out of Africa. In other words, my experiencing these habitats and learning from each of them is a reflection of how the human species, early humans, also learned from each of these habitats. And what I realized was that by learning from the world's diverse habitats, that's actually what makes us human. All of the things that we think make us human beings unique and special and precious actually come from our unique relationship over generation after generation after generation, the things that all these habitats taught us about how to be in the world. Those are embedded within us, deep within us, in a kind of memory, as intelligences that are in us. And they've accumulated in us over the past 8 million years, from a time when our line of humans departed from the line that would go and become the chimps. And as evidence for this, all you have to do is look at the chimps today. The chimps stayed there. They stayed in the same habitat that we separated from. We went and experienced every habitat in the planet. Look at what we've become because of that. Everything that we are. We do art, we do music. Look at us. We're so different. That's because we learned from every habitat on the planet. The chimps didn't do that, and they're still, flinging shit at each other in the trees. That's what makes us human. That's Earthling theory in a nutshell. My point, I guess my argument here is that if we understood that, if we understood our deep intimate endowment, the gift of the earth, right? We would feel such a sense of relationship and gratitude and a sense of just being lucky to have experienced this. We would feel such a sense of kinship with the earth. That would replace our sense of striving and the hyperconsumption that I mentioned. That's how we can actually begin to replace that sense of needing to hyperconsume with a sense of wanting to go back into a co-creative participation with the world. That's how we begin to restore a right relationship with the world instead of the one that we're in. And I think that's the base. So I know this sounds naive. It sounds very idealistic, and it is idealistic. It's not naive, but it is idealistic. That I think if we can begin to recultivate that sense of being earthlings. You said that you were homeless for a while. Oika means home. That's what it means.
Mm-hmm.
It comes from the Greek word for home,
Mm-hmm.
oikos. And so I think if we can restore that sense of being from home, wherever we are on the earth, I'm down the beach right now. This is home. I feel like I'm at home. If I feel like I'm at home, I don't feel like I need to consume in order to feel like I'm safe and at home.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's why we tend to consume, because we don't feel comfortable. We don't feel content. But if we can feel content simply by being on earth because we are home, do you see what I mean? Like we feel a sense of being happy. We feel a sense of being content and because we belong here. That will tend to, relocate our sense of self back where it will be grounded in a sense of homed. We'll be homed again. And then we won't this is how we restore a sense of purpose that can, I think, and I'm not talking about this in black or white, like we do this or or pursue endless profit. I'm saying that if we can, begin to restore a sense of gratitude for being on earth, fall back in love with the beauty of the earth, the natural, simple goodness of the earth in everyone, because it's ours. It's the human endowment. It's a human birthright to feel this way. Then that will begin to offset this pathological consumption that we're trapped by right now. That's what Oika is about. And I know that sounds grandiose.
No, it doesn't. To be honest, it doesn't.
But I gotta tell you, it feels good to do it.
Right.
Every day I wake up with a sense of purpose, and I'm surrounded by beauty. I feel confirmed and affirmed, and like this is what I'm here to do. And I think I see a beautiful future in this. Otherwise, I don't see any future at all, and that's why I say the future is beautiful, or there isn't one. Anyway.
Yeah.
Sorry, I went on.
No. And when you say it's idealistic, I'm the one who always tells people, imagine you were sitting, at the boat dock when Gandhi was, getting on a ship and going back to India with these ideas to, bring liberty to the country. And say you guys start, you strike a conversation with Gandhi and he's telling you why he's going back to India. You're going to start laughing because you're like, are you crazy? Like, you, one single dude, you're going to go down there and you're going to make revolution against the great British. Like, are you kidding me? No. Or you're having this conversation with Guevara and Castro, or you're having it with so many different people. These are idealistic visions, but they're manifestable because we can think it. And I believe when people are on that path to manifest what they believe in, it's no longer this grandiose idea that just is impossible. I mean, when you look at some people, for example, and it's not a matter of good or bad, but you look at Elon Musk, for example, he's a guy who started with a couple of tech investments in the right places and stuff, but he had this grandiose vision of doing certain things and he manifests them. It's the power of using his money in the ways that he wants to, but he manifests his visions. But if you were going to think about Elon Musk 1991 and Elon Musk 2024, it's too far apart to be able to understand that. So I really don't have this fear, and I think nobody should have this fear of having idealistic wills.
Well, I just think they begin to sound grandiose when you think you're going to implement them. But I do fall back on the fact that, look, I just wake up and enjoy the world. I just see beauty. I study nature, and I every day I'm amazed at what it teaches me and what it shows me, and what I get to learn every day about the complexity of nature. And I suppose it's a lot to ask for people to want to learn, to like want to learn science, but you don't even need to have to learn science. You just have to love nature. Like, and I don't even mean you need to go and live uncomfortably, like you don't have to go climb a mountain or cross an ocean. You just have to enjoy the way light reflects off of the trees, or this, and it doesn't require a vast expanse of you could do this, in a vacant lot. You could do this. It doesn't require a lot of privilege. It's just the quiet moments when a bird happens to land next to you, and you just connect with it for a moment. I know it sounds grandiose when you extrapolate it large. On the intimate scale, it's really just about taking a moment to listen to nature and take its power and its complexity and its intelligence. Really, it's about aligning oneself with its intelligence, and knowing that its intelligence is in you. And I think if we figure out and remember how to activate that deep intelligence that the earth has endowed on us. I know this because I've studied the paleontological record, I've studied the geology, I've studied the human evolution. I've really studied the science. It's in us. And artificial intelligence, when I look at artificial intelligence, and I've been diving deep and interrogating these AI systems, I get to the bottom of it pretty quickly, and I realize that no, I'm not dealing with deep ecological intelligence. I'm dealing with this superficial neural network that I can pretty readily get to the bottom of, because my intelligence, and the intelligence that's ecological, that's relational,
It's not computational.
It's right. Compute does not equal relate.
Yeah.
Human intelligence is relational. It's hard won over the past 8 million years of relational intelligence with the complexity of nature. That is powerful. It's more powerful than the most powerful AI. And I think, and it's also in every one of us. You may not know this, you may not believe me, but it's in there. We just need to activate it, remember it, and take it seriously. This is how we empower ourselves to keep AI as a tool that serves us, versus the opposite, which is us being the tool to serve the AI. If we're worried about that, then this is how you do it. You learn how to reactivate the deep ecological intelligence that's within every one of us. Activate that, and that's how you keep the AI in the box. Because I got news for you: the alignment problem, AI is not aligned. It just because it's not the same as our intelligence. So I guess
it's not an Earthling. That's what it is. It's not an Earthling. Right. So you cannot relate to something that's not an Earthling.
But we can shape it. We can still shape it if we keep it
to be advantageous.
So we're at a critical inflection point, and I think now is the time to begin to remember these deep intelligences, because they'll serve us well. They always have. They've served us for the past 8 million years and in more. It's not just our intelligence. It's the intelligence of the earth. It's the intelligence of the cosmos, frankly, if we choose to remember it.
You're right. And you know what? You bring me to a point. This is, I wanted to ask other questions first, but I'm going to ask this because you bring me to this point. On your website, I'm going to read this. You ask a question. You say, how will the unprecedented power of attention manipulation combined with seemingly insatiable monetary incentive play out in our already anxious and fragile cultural mindscape. And this is going exactly to what you're talking about now. I mean,
how will it play out? We'll see.
what do you think? Because let's take this to oikonomics, because that's where oikonomics really comes in. How can we create oikonomics instead of fighting systems? Because when I started Compassiviste, it was a word I coined, which puts compassion and activism together.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea for me was, taking from a lot of religion, the actual religion, the spirituality of religion, not the, kind of the habitual and the works and stuff, the organized religion, but the spirituality of it. When you think back to Buddha or other people, and you read or you analyze, and I think to myself, if we were able, our minds, work in modules, and if we were able to keep the compassion module, like that ecological awareness that you talk about, in using another word, if we can keep the ecological awareness and the ecological compassion always steady in our head, it's always there. We can't remove it. So, for example, if you and I right now went into a store, you want to buy a pair of shoes, and you find a pair of shoes you like, and there's a little scratch on it, your economic mind is going to try to, tell the store owner, for example, hey, I want a discount, there's a scratch on it. That's the mind that's functioning. That's the module that's functioning right there. But if you're able to keep the compassion module on all the time, you'd be like, well, sir, if you were to reduce the price on this, will it affect your family? Will it affect your income? Can you maintain your store? Like, am I trading in a way that's selfish right now or not? And all of those things, So if we start becoming relational, in a sense, as you put it, and ecological in that way, can we create a society that builds on trade, builds on innovation? And to go back to the father of Western capitalism, in his book Wealth of Nations, he says that capitalism, is good because it supports innovation for the greater good of the whole. John Adams never says it's for that person, not for that person to be a billionaire or multi-billionaire. No, we're going to create cars. We're going to put the money in competition and innovation to create cars so more people can be comfortable in travel, right? It's not about we're going to get it to a point where now we're going to build Ferraris. There's no purpose for that, right? So in a sense, how do we get economics involved to propose an economic system modeled on the health and balance of ecosystems, which you call this term of the balance right relations, right? That's the term you use. So how do you make that shift? If you were tomorrow, king of the world, how do you install economics?
Well, the scenario that you paint does point back to the grandiosity of the idea, because I don't do that. Like, there's a phrase that I use that when you're in right relation, okay, now that's a big if. That's a big if. But I'm just going to say, when you're in right relation, which is an ecological term, because ecology is the study of relationships, right? So I'm going to say that when you're in right relationship, self-care is world care. Okay? When you're in, but that's only when you're in right relationship.
Right.
Let's just assume
I understand that.
Okay. So if I walk in to get those sneakers and I say, I want those sneakers at a discount, that is a statement of self-care, right? But if I'm not in that is, but I'm the way that you're presenting it kind of presumes that I'm not in right relation. I'm already in an economic, as in the old paradigm, economic mindset. But if I was in an ecological mindset, like an Oika, an oikonomic mindset, my self-care would already be world care. So actually, I don't want a new pair of sneakers. I don't, you know what I mean? Like, I'm saying I wouldn't just go in and say, I'm going to go get the best deal I can.
Exactly.
That's not really what my thing is. My thing is, do I even need a new pair of sneakers? And if I was going to get a new pair of sneakers, I wouldn't go get a new pair. I would try to find, because I know that a used pair, or a pair that somebody is already better for the world. And if it's better for the world, it's better for me. Like, I know this sounds naive, but it's like, in my world, like, the last thing I want is a new pair of shoes.
Mm-hmm.
The last thing
Mm-hmm.
me, Rich, wants is a freaking new pair of shoes.
Right.
The last thing I want to do is bring a new pair of shoes onto this planet, because I know that bringing a new pair of shoes onto this planet hurts this planet. And if it hurts this planet, it
hurts
hurts
me.
me. That's right. Self-care is world care. You see, that's a whole new paradigm of thinking. So the scenario that you presented isn't the scenario of Oika. Okay, so all I'm saying is that we'd have to change the paradigm first, and that's what I'm trying to do. Let's get people to fall in love with the world first, and then that scenario becomes a different thing. It becomes, the whole economic system kind of ceases to exist as it is. That doesn't mean it goes away. It just becomes a different system. And by the way, when you bring up, who was it, Adam Smith?
Yeah.
Was he the guy that also talks about animal spirits? Because the animal spirits part of, I forget, maybe it was Keynes. Was it Keynes?
Yeah, it was Keynes. John Maynard Keynes, yeah.
John Maynard Keynes talked about animal spirits, because as much as we'd like for it to be the case, economics aren't purely rational. There is a wrench, there is a monkey, there is an element of surprise. There is an unpredictable, and this is true of the cosmos, by the way, that there is always an unpredictable element, including science, including economics, including everything that the left brain wants to be purely predictable and quantifiable.
And logical, yeah.
It isn't. That's not the creative life force of the universe. It doesn't operate like that. So there is an element of irrationality so I think that's the ticket. Like, that's where we can get people to act irrationally and not want to necessarily participate in that. When we talk about economics, we're kind of outside of my realm of, I can't really speak intelligently about it. All I can do is dream up artful ways of breaking it. That's all I can do.
Yeah, and speaking of artful ways, again, another term you coin is artful intelligence, and it's basically, I guess, a synthesis of technology and nature wisdom, to put it that way. In Compassiviste, we have multiple arms. We kind of function like an octopus ecosystem. So, and we have these arms that are artistic, and they're based in expression. And we have film. We have the podcast. We have music. Paintings, different art spaces. And so, the reason for the art for me was, in essence, to get to a place where you can detach yourself from the world that you are currently kind of just thrown into and continuing on a path that you see the whole city going in. Like, when you go to New York City and you stand, morning rush hour, 8:30 on, Wall Street or any of the other financial district streets, you see a crowd of people, like, just, you could literally put a blindfold on them, they'll still follow a path. Like, they're just so robotic in their systems, right? And I think when you get into the arts, you break that roboticism. Like, you just walk away from being so stationed in a way, and that allows you to start connecting back with the awareness, the ecological awareness that you talk about. So, in a way, I think we're very aligned in the sense of how what you call artful intelligence plays a role in actually allowing people to transition maybe to oikonomics, because it gives you that space and that maneuverability function, that you can see the world from a different light and connect from a different light, and now you are connected to oikonomics. Is that something you've kind of...
Well, it comes primarily from, I started working with artists. I mean, I'm a scientist, right? Trained in the sciences. And, I've been trying to communicate this thing my whole life, which is this ineffable, spiritual, overwhelming sense of gratitude and just love, for lack of a better word, and affection, this sense of overwhelming affection for nature and gratitude for being part of it, which doesn't go over well with science. You can't go to a scientific conference and talk in those terms. I get that. Like, I also feel
Thank you for saying that. A lot of scientists don't. Thank you.
But I also appreciate science for what it is. Like I respect the reductionist method. I understand why science is so protective of hard-won scientific knowledge. I've studied the methodologies of science. I understand how it can be hijacked by people with an agenda or people with, unrigorous methods. Or I understand like why it has to be protected. But I'm not here to do science. I'm here to celebrate its findings. I'm really here to get people to appreciate what it's revealing about the interconnectedness of everything. My days of doing the science, are over. I don't want to do the science. I don't like having to inhabit a separated position. I don't like having to be objective. I feel too connected to my subject. I don't want to dissect things. I don't want to separate myself. I want to feel connected to. So I stopped doing science. Now my role is to say, oh my God, look at how beautiful what science is revealing is. This is worthy of a spiritual experience. What science is revealing is how deeply connected and how divine, sacred the world really is. There is a religious experience to be had. And I mean religious in the original sense of the word. The root of the word religion is lig, L-I-G, connection, like a ligament. That's the original spirit of religion, was to be connected. And my God, religion is showing the connection. Science is showing that connection. So what's the problem here? Like, why is there a conflict between science and religion? If there is one, it's a fiction. It's a fiction of some power dynamic, or some patriarchy, or some bullshit we can do without. So let's jettison that. Actually, the things are all agreeing that we live in a incredibly magical, beautiful. Now, I don't want to get overwhelmed with, but that at the same time, I don't want to get hijacked by pseudoscience and superstition and supernaturalism or any of those other, I don't want to deal with mythologies that don't serve, like that's also a dead end for me. Anyway, sorry, I don't mean to get into that. But what were we talking about? We were talking about
from Zeus to Star Wars. You don't want to get into those, and
I love the story. Either way,
obviously,
But why was I talking about that?
You were talking about how the connection and the artful intelligence.
Art. So, as a scientist, I reached out to the art world, to find creative people who could help me communicate this very thing. And I couldn't find anybody for years. But eventually I did. I found this one artist, Rita Leduc, who has become a long-term collaborator of mine. She's also a very rigorous thinker. In fact, she's in many ways more rigorous thinking and more analytical than I am. And so, but we have become, very synergistic in the way we work together. And so lately we have been utilizing this term artful intelligence, as opposed to, because she has the same problem. She has the same struggles as I do. Like, she's an artist, but she doesn't want to get roped into the art world. Like, the art world has this whole, the science world has this whole intelligentsia thing, and the art world has this whole, whatever the equivalent, like, where they decide what good art is. And so she has the same kind of struggles on her side. And so we've come together under the umbrella of Artful to distinguish between artistic and because there's this whole art world, and we're trying to say it's not that. This is something else. This is more of a creative expression that is infused with nature and can incorporate everything that science is learning, but do it in a intimately creative way that just is dissolves the boundaries between the artist and the subject, that kind of a thing. And so artful intelligence is that. It's how do we bring this feeling, this understanding, this paradigm of Oika and live it? And how do we show it? Well, we do it by living artfully. It's a way of inviting people to experience it in their lives for those who are more artfully inclined, that are not that are more drawn toward creative expression as opposed to science. I think that's what it means. I think that's the way.
And you know what? And I think you can build a much more inclusive and compassionate society through that, and that's really why I incorporated the arts in the same way as you're suggesting, not the art world, but the arts into our work at Compassiviste, because we really believe that too. Like, we wholeheartedly believe it is a form of communication and expression and unity and relation to not just another person who's viewing your art or experiencing your art from what you express, but also the way you relate to everything that incorporated the development of that art.
Totally. That's the thing. We're bringing that ecological dynamic, the relational dynamic back into the art, so that the artist can now live in ecological dynamics, like freely and creatively. And then the other thing is the freedom that the artist, like that true art, you know what I mean? That true art strives to endeavors to live by. We want that. We want freedom to express nature's intelligence, and that requires like a commitment to artful, like that artful freedom. So yes.
And you know what, your philosophy and what we do at Compassiviste, we both hold gratitude, compassion, and liberty as really high values, core values, into being able to transition, into being able to have that relational situation, to be in the right relation, as you call it. You need those to be in that space, right?
Well, because relationality comes with responsibility to the other. Like, it's not just about like creating art that doesn't take into account others. Like, that's what compassion is, right? Like, compassion is about being aware of the impacts of what you're doing on the other. That's compassion. It's about empathy. Absolutely, because there are artists out there that don't give a damn. They don't. And that's not what I mean by freedom. That's not what freedom comes coupled to responsibility.
Yes.
For views that might not be the same as yours. That's what right relation also implies, is that compassion to be in love with the other. Because the other is actually the self. That's right. So you've got to actually love the other. And I know that creates risks and creates that can be very problematic. And I'm not a utopianist, and I'm not naive in that way, but I'm just saying that, like, that freedom and that power, because nature isn't always warm and fuzzy. It can be brutal. And so it does require that humans, if we have humanity, if we're going to be humane, we've got to care for each other in a very, that's what got us here. We didn't get here by brutalizing each other. We got here by
collaborating.
That's right. It's not just Darwin's ideas were not just about competition, because sometimes the best way to compete was to do it together.
Yes. Survival of the fittest wasn't always killing the person in front of you.
No, in fact,
more than not, it was the other way around. It was using the person.
I can imagine. And when you see us as a whole, when you see us all as Earthlings, It's always about us. We're all in this together,
Mm-hmm.
man.
Mm-hmm.
There is no other,
Yeah.
ultimately. It just depends on what scale you choose to look at it. And if you look at it as, and when you see our journey as human beings on a planet, this is our journey. It doesn't, you're not, there are no other countries. Those are
Yeah.
fictional, man.
Yeah.
We're all in this together. That's the paradigm. I know this sounds naive, but that's the freaking reality. And like, I'm, what can I say? Like that's the reality. And we've got to figure out a way to
Right.
communicate this in a way
And I
that can't
think,
be dismissed.
right. And you know what? I'm hopeful though, because, and I'm optimistic. And the reason I'm hopeful and optimistic is I'm finding lately a lot more voices and a lot more advocacy for what you're saying. And different people will maybe use slightly different versions, slightly different terminology, whatever, you know. But at the end of the day, I'm finding that people are willing to recognize and that there's a problem with the way we're living. You know, that we're not aligned in a way, and we've become maladaptive. People are seeing that, so now they're looking for, well, what can I do? And I think this is where people like yourself become important, because the leadership in this transformative change, becomes the the methodology of systemic shift. You know, you inspire systemic shift by what you're sharing to the world right now. Okay, when I read about you, when I watch your film, when I go on your websites and everything else, I get educated, I get inspired, and I am moved to say, wow, I can do that. I want to be aligned. I want to be connected. I want to be in right relation. I want to do all this. But then where it becomes difficult for people is it's not easy becoming, well, not that it's not easy. People haven't, yourself, me, anybody else, they haven't quite figured out how do we how can people join? How can people be a part of, say, Oika, in the sense that um, you have to balance so many decisions on a daily basis that come from your previous life, right? I mean, you've bought a house, you have a mortgage now, and you have a car payment, and your kids in private school. Okay, I have all these. I have to go work at my job as a banker at HSBC, giving out loans for fossil drilling. Uh, how do I balance that with, I know I want to be here, but
Okay.
you know that's really the
Well,
main question.
that act, I want to change my answer from before, because
Okay.
that's what artful refers to.
Right.
How do we do that? That whatever that answer is, that's what artful is supposed to be. That's the artfulness. So, well, what? Let's figure that out, Ali. Let's figure that. Like, you have insight into that because you did it.
Mm,
You did it. So
I
you
did
have.
it.
I mean, I did it in an unrealistic way. You know what I mean? You did it. You changed your life, and you've committed yourself to something. Like,
But I don't think people are that serious. That's the
okay,
problem.
okay.
To
Well,
to
I'm
to
gonna.
the change, because I have people on my team. I'll tell you. I'll give you my own example. I've had people on my team that we've continuously had to let go because they come with this cool factor of, oh, this is a new movement, it's kind of cool, I like what they're doing and stuff like that, but they're really there for the pay, and their lifestyle doesn't change after a while. They're still living the same way. They just come to the office and leave the office, kind of thing. And we wanted everybody to kind of be in that, what you call right relation, getting there at least, and maybe not in it, but getting there. We always wanted to motivate each other to reach there, to reach higher. I haven't shopped in, and I can say this very comfortably, I haven't shopped in over 6 years now, except for very, very necessary items that I was able to find and trade and grab and things like that. And the reason I do that is not because I don't have money. I'm not in that state anymore. That was
I
that
get
was a
you.
moment. I
Yeah.
have all the money to go into
Yeah.
Gucci. I'm not doing that because I understand a certain oneness with my world, and I understand the relation, and I understand I cannot contribute to that anymore. For people to, in a sense, let's just call it joy, give up the joy of that world, right? And come into this world not knowing how this joy is so much more impactful
There you
than
go.
there.
Now
They
you're
don't
talking.
have that taste, right? It's kind
Right,
of I kind of want to give people a scoop of my ice cream and then be
right,
like, see, is this better than Baskin Robbins? Is
right,
it? Okay, come here. Come here now. Come
right,
here.
right,
Come to me
right.
because
Well, first
this
of
is
all,
ice cream.
that's not joy though. Like, let's be clear.
Yeah, it's not.
What they're experiencing is not joy. Getting the
No.
latest phone
Yeah,
or
that's not joy at all.
that is a fucking sorry. That
Yeah.
is a treadmill of despair and anxiety, frankly.
Yes. It's fear.
And
It all comes from fear.
it's low level anxiety and fear that you don't even really recognize as what it is. That's why I'm saying, like, you can get this from a bird. Like, a bird can come and land on your doorstep and just be like, look around, and you could be like, wow, that bird doesn't feel that bird doesn't feel the thing that the dread that I feel. How does that? And then that's it. Like, that's the opening. That's your tuna. That's your bluefin tuna. Okay, so I think we need to be really clear on what we can expect people to do. I don't think that we can expect them to have the bluefin tuna moment, or the big epiphany that changes, or like you did, jettison their wealth and become compassionate activists overnight. But I do think we can give them a scoop of ice cream and say, look, there's a beautiful thing that's just waiting for you to get into relationship with it, and little sweet bites of it that are free, and they always give more than they take. This is the thing about nature. There's a surplus. There's an abundance. This is what I call the creative life force, that there's more for you than it takes from you. That's been the case. That's why we're here. We are living in the abundance of nature right now. And you can tap into. I'm tapping into it all the time. But what you have to do, I call it fake it till you make it, where you decide that I'm going to actually appreciate when I pick up a pebble and I look at it and I study it and I think to myself, my God, this is gorgeous, or I'm going to learn the history of this rock, and I'm going to learn what kind of rock it is and how it formed and what these minerals are and where they come from, and how those minerals are the minerals that are in my body, that are in my bones, that are in my. Or when I look at that star, I'm going to figure out what's a star? What is a star? How does it? I'm going to learn this story. It's science, but it doesn't need to be thought of as like the science you learned in high school. It's actually the story of the beautiful, divine, sacred universe of you unfolding itself, asking for your participation in it. And within that is this ice cream thing. It's like it slowly begins to displace. Oh, I got to get new shoes so that I got to get the latest. That anxiety-ridden thing slowly begins to become irrelevant, to the point where you're like, I can't believe I used to participate in that, when the beautiful, amazing, free thing. And there are other people out there who see it too. Like, there are people in my my small circle of people who see it too, and we get together and we're like, oh my God, this is so beautiful, and everything we learn about it affirms it that much more. And every time we do that, it doesn't require that we be millionaires to do this. That doesn't mean you have to quit your job and jettison money and family, and it's not a cult. It's not any of those things.
Exactly.
It's just the small appreciations of the depth of nature's creative intelligence and beauty and bounty, and suddenly those other things, and the noise of our culture that's the hyperconsumption begins to fade, and then and you know what's happening in the background? The world is healing. It's healing, and the powerful, obnoxious despots of the world, they're becoming less and less relevant. And then they start to see it. I don't know. This is where it starts to become, sound grandiose.
And no, but you know what? When you talk about what the example I gave about the ice cream scoop, well, you know what? A better and more realistic example is your YouTube channel. That's exactly what you're doing on your YouTube channel. You're sharing with people that scoop, right?
Are so I am so.
But that's why we need to rise above that, right? That's why this podcast is happening, because I think people listen to you here and other places, and they start thinking, wow, I need to be in right relation. And then they start looking at the work, right? Because that's how you educate yourself. And then you start looking at the work, and then you start, it's not a cultish thing, but it's just an education to a more joyful you, which is more aligned. It's the same thing in religion. I mean, when say I have a friend who's Christian and I see how loving their household is, I'm like, why are you guys so loving? Oh, we live by the Bible. Well, I'm going to start reading the Bible because I want to know how this happened, right? So when I listen to you and you say all the beautiful things you're saying, I'm like, well, how can I learn more? I'm going to go on his YouTube channel. I'm going to go here. I'm going to go there. And then it starts to kind of blossom in a sense, right?
We'll see. I've been at this a long time, Ellie, and I just can't count on the algorithms or anything like that. I just
No, no,
count.
no, 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 you can't. But you know what? The universe guides, and I think it's been guiding me in ways that I could not ever have imagined. I mean, I've met people I would have never thought existed. I've crossed paths with people. There are people on our team. When I started Compassiviste, it's a digital space, but we have people from Australia, from
Yeah,
Melbourne all
yeah,
the way to LA,
yeah.
and now they're going the other way. I mean, going this way. And we have people in Africa, we have people in India, we have people in all over the world, Europe, everywhere, South America. And to think out of 8 billion people that I would cross a complete stranger
That's
that
pretty
is
awesome.
aligned, that
Yeah.
can't be a coincidence. I cannot believe that coincidence. It's got to be more than that. There's got to
So
be
what are you going to
more.
do? Because you seem you strike me as a very effective, organized, and you get shit done. So what are you going to do? Like,
I think we got to start with a presence. So, and you know how you advocate big history? Because it's the kind of education that really teaches you about the cosmos, right? And your human evolution within it. That's where, with that science, you can start understanding the reality of how we got to where we are, right? Without big history, you can't learn that. Look at big history well, not big history, but our recent history, right? Just go um, less than a millennia away. You notice all these movements, all these changes that happened in society, feudalism and everything, and religion, and all those started with presence. So what we're doing wrong now, in a sense, or not wrong, why we're in our infantile stage right now is because we're not connected. So you're somewhere doing your thing. I'm somewhere doing my thing. I have my website. You have your website. So and so has their website. Another person has their. Now imagine if we had kind of like, how Comic Con is for a certain world, right? It's a convention for a certain world. There's the car show. It's a convention for a certain world. Then there's the home trade show. It's for a certain world. There's the boat show. What do? They bring this church and they place it in your city for a reasonable amount of money for you to come and experience what you want to already, but you don't have the chance to. So you love boats, you want to buy a boat, you've always wanted to buy a boat, you saved all the money, the boat show's coming to town. You're going, right? A lot of people want to be where you're talking about. They want to be at that stage, but we don't have the physical platforms, the physical relations. This digital space is not going to be enough. It's enough to influence when you have the connection. So I think something of a compassion convention, something of an Oika convention that brings people together in large numbers, that travels. You love traveling, I love traveling. I've traveled to over 160 countries. If I was able to take the convention from LA to Boston to Chicago to New York to Miami, then down to Mexico City and North Toronto and all these. Just go around the world with it and gather people into this lifestyle. It becomes what the Catholic Church became. That's how it started. They sent missionaries out, they built spaces. I mean, that's how you do
the
it
real world.
in the real world. And they did it in the real world. That's what they did. They sent missionaries out. They either, hugged each other and became Christians, or they killed each other and became Christians. The point is, that's how they did it. And then they built these monumental buildings that became the primary, symbol of any space they were in. So the power was always there. And with the power came this dominance over the cultural ideology. Now, you don't want to do that, but I don't think we need to do that. I think we are on such a loving space in the world that so many people want to join, but they just don't know where to find and how to develop that relation. I went, I like what you do. I've been watching you for a while. I haven't heard about you 2 days ago, but I have a problem. I don't relate to Rich Blundell because I only can relate to a one directional conversation on his YouTube to me, on his website to me. I've never been able to have this conversation with you. Now it's empowered me so much more. Imagine the impact you can have if you can replicate this conversation 20 million times around the world. That is the step
I'm
that we
trying, man.
need to take collectively.
I'm trying. Like, I'm like ready. Willing. I'm ready, man.
But that's what we got to do. We got to take it on the road, right? I mean, that's how music happened
I
too.
am on the road, man.
Even today, Taylor Swift, Beyonce, the biggest musicians of the world, right? They go on tour. I don't know. Do they need to go on tour to sell records? They're selling records, but they need to go on tour because after that concert, you have this special relationship with that act that you saw.
No, dude,
it's different.
That is. I was just.
I saw Guns N' Roses once in my life.
Yeah.
30 years ago, and until today, when I hear a song from, I'm like, oh, that was genius music, and I advocate for it for no reason other than the connection that I had.
What you're saying rings true to me because, frankly, that's the only way I've ever actually made the connection. It's the only way. I've never been able to I've never been able to succeed through giving somebody the evidence or the data or my accomplishments, or it's always been in the room, in relation. But when that happens, man, I see it. I see the gears engage and boom, the thing, unbelievable actually how well it happens when it happens. So what you're saying is true. I just don't know how to get those, how to upscale or make just get those things more frequent. It's tough to schedule those kinds of things. They're very infrequent, unfortunately. I'm ready. I have the time. This is my full-time gig. So
this is my full-time gig too. So I have the time as well. And I really think it comes down to finding, you said very early in our conversation today, you said, how do we get a few of these wealthy people to see this and understand it and advocate for it, right? So imagine, just as a thought, you had access to Jeff Bezos and you presented this whole ideology and he said, wow, I've been changed. I'm going to fund this. Okay. All you need is a startup fund that gets you the crowdfunding in place, because then it becomes a community, like a church. You know what the church does? You go to church and they don't do it today, but they used to pass a hat around and people just put little change in it and it went around and it went. Nobody's name was on the paper that they put in there. Nobody had the right to ask the church where the money went, what they did, nothing. All they did was they believed in the church, so they gave to the church. The church was self-sustainable because of that, right? And now it's the richest, real estate organization in the world. But that's how it all started, for the purpose. You got to start with funding from a source that understands you, right? Once you get funding from a source that understands you, then you build the crowd. When you build the crowd, you don't need funding anymore, because now you have a belief system, which is faith is stronger than any other magnet in the world. So that's my advocacy plan, and I'm actually doing that. If you go on our website, we're doing Compassiviste.
No, I see that.
That's what we call it, the convention. And we're bringing it to life, and I want you to be a part of it, because those are the people I want to take on tour with Compassicon.
That's beautiful. Well, I'll say this, that the curriculum of Oika, and the ideas, the Earthling theory and the big history, boy, that stuff, when it's delivered, in a way that's accessible to people, it works. It can deliver the goods.
And education, rich education. You're in a world.
That's what I mean.
Online education. We're doing that as well. We're creating our own school.
But I'm just saying the content itself can really deliver the powerful sort of wow, I didn't know that. And it can work on people. It can work on their psyches and to get them to feel more connected and to start to break down that dualism that can really start. The content itself delivers the goods.
Yes.
The messenger is one thing, but I'm just saying the message itself can really, it delivers the goods. I have 100% faith in it when it's delivered in an accessible, a good ice cream flavor.
Yeah, exactly.
if it's dry and it doesn't work. But if it's done like in a fun, engaging, exciting way, it's awesome. And yeah,
you're absolutely right. It works because it's the truth. That's why it works. It's
right.
the truth. There's no
and
reason.
It's all around us.
Yeah, exactly. And there's no denying it. So, and the thing is, it's not new. Long before the two of us. I mean, you had stories like Walden. You had philosophies like Spinoza. You had spiritual insights like Buddha.
Absolutely.
You had all these advocacies that came through the generations, right? And basically, we see them work.
We need it now.
Yes, we need it now more than ever. In a pragmatic way, we need it now more than ever because you have this your famous quote: "The future is beautiful, or there isn't one." That's really where we're at because we keep fooling ourselves into this ideology that we're going to move to Mars, or we're going to do this, or we're going to do that, and we're going to keep escaping. There's no beauty in that. The beauty is how I tell people this. I say, how stupid do you think you look to yourself in the mirror that you couldn't solve going extinct yourself? That is a level of stupidity that is beyond comprehension.
I believe we have the intelligence. It's in us.
Of course we do.
We just need to activate it. And I think look, the earth has given it to us. We just need to remember it.
Yes, exactly. Memory. Yeah. That's what makes us so amazing. We have memory, I tell people this. I tell people, if I was a goldfish, I don't expect anything from myself anymore. As long as I don't get eaten for a certain amount of time, I'm good. I'm happy. There's joy in my life. But as a human, I cannot reduce myself to a goldfish purposefully because
but they're trying. I'm telling you.
Yeah, they're trying really hard.
Trying to make us bring us down to goldfish level intelligence.
Exactly. And that's the problem. And I really think when we get to that level of doing what you're doing on that scale and through the conventions and through the education platforms, we're going to all together make a difference. And I really, really believe that.
We have to. And I believe it too. Even if it's just, small, and we're going to have fun and gorgeous times doing it.
Of course. Now go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I just was going to say, I don't know if we're having a different conversation now, but I do have a network of, quite effective people around me, and they all have different sort of specialties. Like one of the guys I deal with, he's a designer of really high-end resorts and spas around the world, like super, like places I never even knew existed. And he's been trying to get me to go and do events at
retreats
at these places. But he might be a good guy to keep, eventually when you do when you were looking to go to places that will attract the kind of people you're talking about, he would have, he has ins because he designed these places.
Of course.
So people like that, kind of in my orbit. So keep me in the loop with what you're...
For sure. And you know what? There's also this thing about billionaires that's also not true because I had many billionaire clients. There aren't that many in the world, but I had a fair amount of billionaires in my life. And they're not evil by creation and design. It's just they get dragged into these decision makings that are forceful upon them to hurt themselves. It's just, that's how it is. It's kind of like being Pharaoh 5,000 years ago.
Some of them have the bandwidth or the opportunity to learn what I'm talking about.
Yes, they are. That's what I'm trying to tell you. There's so much hope. There's so much hope.
They're smart. These are intelligent, intellectual people. If they could put some of that toward learning what I talk about, they can put the pieces together in a way where they're like, yes, this is what my wealth is for.
Exactly.
This wealth that my family has generated, they can be like, actually, this is what I can put
this is what the universe made me for.
That's right. And so that is a hopeful ace in the hole. We can actually pull that up. That might work. You know what I mean? Like that might
Yes,
work.
yes,
And they don't have to give, they don't have to
right.
give up their wealth. They just need
No,
to
no.
they need
It's
to leverage their wealth into
Yes,
better
and
work.
it's such a, and to be very honest with you, it's such a small amount of their wealth. You know, I mean, when you talk to somebody who's worth $5 billion and you're asking for $10 million, $20 million
To
for
make a big difference.
to make a difference that hasn't been made yet.
That's right.
Not,
And
don't
we're
call it
talking,
a big difference.
these are ideas too, by the way. The
Right.
infrastructure is already there. We're not talking about building a new infrastructure. We're
Yeah.
talking about, it's like, I don't need a new pair of shoes. Okay. What
Right.
I need is like an opportunity to
Hmm.
communicate something. Technically, that doesn't cost a lot.
Hmm.
I don't
Exactly.
need, I don't
That's
need a
what
lot of money.
yeah. No,
So
that's what I mean. And a lot of people are aligned. And even a lot of these very wealthy people, you know, a lot of them aren't working anymore. They became very wealthy on the back of either family or some idea they had that went viral, so to speak. And they became very wealthy. And now they're just enjoying their lives. You know, they're hopping from resort to
that's great.
resort that your friend built, right? And they're looking for something more. They're looking for something that
Beautiful.
elevates them, you know, because they're tired of the same
This is
experiences.
more.
How many
This
times
is
are they going to
more.
go and see? I had a friend of mine, billionaire, who was also a client, and you know, I used to go island hopping with him because Toronto was freezing cold, and he was always down south. And I went with him once, and he's like, "I really don't like this. I need a new space." I was like, "Why?" He's like, "Do you know how many times I've been dolphin watching? Like, I'm tired of seeing, I know them. I know this dolphin from the other dolphin, the amount of times I've been. I'm tired of this. I need a new animal." So they're looking for something more in their lives, you know? And I think
Well, that's what I mean. This
it's doable.
delivers that more. This can
Yes,
deliver.
exactly.
This is
For
big and
sure.
deep and complex and profound is what it
Mhm.
is. So
And you know, connecting. I recently had this talk with someone, and I came to this realization because they were talking about water, right, as a living body. And then I thought, hey, wait, we're 70% water, just roughly speaking. How often do you and your best friend talk about how alike you are?
yeah,
And but when you stand in front of like the beach behind you, you can't see the likeness of you in the water, and you're 70% that beach, but you're
right.
maybe 10% your friend, to be honest, right?
Yeah.
So it's like our, you know, we need those right relations, and I think you're doing fabulous work, and we're definitely going to put this together.
Well, that will be wonderful, Ali. And you're
Will
doing
do.
wonderful stuff too, man. I was really impressed and filled with hope when I came across your website and looked and dug a little deeper and saw your YouTube channel and what you're doing. So I just thank you, man, for
We're gonna make some changes in the world.
thanks
We
for
are,
coming
because
across my bow
yeah,
here
yeah.
and transferring.
No,
So
we need to. You know, it's I don't, and for me, it's duty, Rich. It's not thank you. It's not a privilege. It's not a. It's duty. I think I'm duty bound to make the world a better
mm,
place. You
mm,
know, it's not that it's my privilege to do so, or it's not that I'm such a lovely, generous, or amazing, compassionate guy that look at what I'm doing. I don't believe in any of that. I think, you know, when you look at stuff as one, you don't see a tree that's giving you oxygen, that's doing all fruits and all this abundance that it's giving you. It doesn't walk around like, hey, look at me, I just gave you apples, you know.
no.
It does it as this duty, as this, just this
Well, I
normal
think there
kind
might
of.
be a better way. There might be better language though, because duty is like it is an obligation, but it's also like just like it is a kind of joyful participation. Like there's a way to be like, thank you, and I want to participate. It's there must be a there must be some religious. What is the religious? Uh, it's ecstatic, really. Like there's an ecstatic participation in it, and you know like you want you want to share. The way I've been saying it lately is like I don't just want to share the experience. I want to share in the experience.
Mhm,
I want other people to feel what I feel
mhm.
because I want to be able to share in it with others. That's both selfish and selfless. Like it's like I want to I want you to feel this so we can be
Yeah,
like
so
this
everybody can be ecstatic,
yeah. And then
right?
we can go about our business and raise our families and make a
Mhm.
living and do the things we need to do. But ultimately it's
Right.
about you know ecstasy, you know, controlled ecstasy, because you can't
Mhm.
live in that.
Mhm.
What I
No,
realize is
you're right.
once you have access to it, it's more a question of you know keeping it under control than
Mhm. that's the beauty of balance, right? I mean,
right. You're trying to keep it on.
the,
You're not always
yeah,
trying to elicit it. You're trying to
yeah.
actually.
That's why you have the tides, for example. You know, if you always had it one way,
That's
well,
right.
there wouldn't be a world, right? But in the
Right.
balance of it, in the balance of the cosmos, that's what it's all about. It's
Right.
finding that cosmic balance
But
that you're
you end up
talking about.
learning that it's always there for you. You know what I
Yes,
mean? Like, and so then when you're down or something bad happens, you always know in the back of your head that wow, it's going to something beautiful is always available to participate in.
Dr. Rich Blundell, thank you very much for speaking on Compassiviste Dialogues. I could have this conversation with you for days and days, but we will do this again for sure. And I really thank you for your compassionate and conscious exploration into our return passage to relating to our nature. I feel
Thank
that's
you,
really
Ali.
the mission that you're on, and that's one that has to be highlighted in the world. We're going to put all of Rich Blundell's links and Oika and his YouTube channel below, and his websites. Do visit those, do learn more, reach out to Rich. Let's build this community. Let's make the changes we need to. Let's improve in that oneness.
Thank you, Ali. Great to meet
We're
you.
here to change the world together. So thank you. I'm Ali Horiat.